Hey everyone, welcome to the Sharon the Red Baron show. I am Sharon with my special guest Quorra. And I wanted to share that I started this channel because I feel like there's no denying that millions and millions and millions of us can feel that we are in the Great Awakening. Whether you are waking up spiritually, something's going on within the church politically, signs, synchronicities, whatever it is, it's happening. I'm super excited. It's the worst of time and the best of times. So I feel like we can make it whatever we want. So please be sure to like and subscribe and tell your friends because I've got lots of interviews from ex-Mormons and leaving the church, which leads me into Quorra here on leaving the church. Quorra, can I ask you, are you a believer in signs? I always love to start with that question. Signs and
Abs-
synchronicities.
Absolutely. I am a big believer in, being able to read what the universe is laying down for me so that I can follow my path in the most appropriate way possible.
Mhm.
And especially with things that have happened of late, it's been just one affirmation after another. So most definitely.
I love it. I love it. Can I ask you, is there a quick story that you can share with us that you've noticed, something happened that you're just like, I just can't make this stuff up?
Um,
Is it
well,
happening more and more though, huh?
Oh,
Lately?
it certainly is, and it's
Right.
one of those things where, I wound up having to leave a dream job that I absolutely adored, and I was able to just follow the signs to get to where I needed to be, and it even with where I wound up, I got laid off, and I'm using that as an opportunity to just follow my path and continue with my own growth and get
I
things in line
love
for
it.
what I want to be doing.
I love it. Don't you feel a lot of people are feeling that way as well? It's just something that's just manifesting. People are like, I'm done with corporate America. I'm
Oh,
tired of working
absolutely.
for someone else. I've always had an
Hmm.
interest in this and I've just never followed my dreams. And I love it. I love it. Um, I have a funny feeling you've got a lot of good things coming down the pipeline. So just
And
saying.
it's a lot of things that I've been working on manifesting, and they're everything that I have been receiving from outside outside sources is that everything that I've got going on is something that's really, really necessary for what is coming up. And so I'm really excited to
Mm.
talk about all of that.
Oh, goody. I love this. Well, thank you, thank you, thank you. So let me ask you, tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, what are your hobbies? What do you like to do?
Well, so I am a Reiki master practitioner and teacher. I am an instructor for the Healing Mountain Massage School in holistic health practices. I also am a sound healing practitioner and consultant. And the dream job that I had, I was actually the bowl master for a local manufacturing company of crystal singing bowls, where I was responsible for harmonically tuning and energetically aligning all of the bowls that were put together in sets for
That's
practitioners all over the
amazing.
world.
Oh
Mm-hmm.
my gosh, can I just share with you real quick? My friend Stephanie, she used her sound bowls up in Smith and Morehouse, just in the beautiful mountains. And I've never heard anything like it. It was like pure magic. It was so hard to explain. It was almost like the bull was singing to the mountains, if that
Mm-hmm.
makes sense. It literally
No.
was just like, and I kept thinking, oh my gosh, everyone throughout the campground and in the park is gonna hear it. But we didn't care. It was just that beautiful. So that's
Mm-hmm.
amazing. I love it. Wonderful. Are you a big,
Yeah.
do you love the animals and things like that?
I do. I'm big on nature. Spend as much time out in the woods as I can. I have my own special little spot that I go to when I need to just reground and regroup. Um,
Oh,
I'm a
nice.
musician. I've been a musician since I was 7 years old, and it's just kind of
Oh.
followed me along through life. And that's why sound and frequency has been such an important part of my own spiritual journey.
I
but
love it.
but I'm
What's
also,
your instrument that you like to play a lot? Is it the
well,
guitar?
no,
No,
me and strings
I'm
don't get
listening.
along. I tried playing cello and guitar years ago. Mostly,
Uh-huh.
I mostly I play winds and percussion. And
Okay.
so multiple kinds of clarinet, saxophone, any
Wow.
percussion instrument I can play,
Are you big into
piano.
jazz? Do you
Oh
play?
yes,
Oh, oh, one of
I
my
was
new
a drummer.
friends, he just is
Yeah, but,
like, you gotta listen to jazz. Like
no,
Utah jazz, get it?
oh yes.
I love it. All the signs and synchronicities. Well, that's
Mhm,
wonderful. I love it. I mean, I feel like the same way on just connecting with nature because it's always been my happy spot as well. And I think so many people, and I don't really feel like I feel like a lot of people are getting the magic of it because they're just tired of being in structures and buildings and just cooped up, and it's just so refreshing. So
mhm.
I love it. Well, listen, so what was your aha moment in leaving the Mormon Church, if I may ask? What was that boom, that awakening, like, okay.
So for me, I'm sort of an odd case because I left the church fairly young. Growing up, church wasn't as big a deal. I grew up in Logan, up north, and while we were part of the church, it was mostly optional.
Oh,
My parents really wanted to reinforce us thinking for ourselves and not just adhering to something because that's what we're supposed to do.
and what you're
But
told.
And when we moved
That's
down
nice.
to the Salt Lake Valley, um, my father was an entrepreneur. And when we moved down here, business was really struggling. And so the church stepped in, and my parents fell back into it just more out of obligation, from what I can tell. But
Mhm.
they went totally diehard with it, whereas we were still thinking for ourselves. And at the time, I was about 12 or 13 and beginning to get into energy work and even magical
Wow, that
practices and things
young,
like that.
huh? That is, geesh, that's amazing. And just
But
people for the record, energy healing is very, very real. You can go to the US government site, all the files are released. It's very real. So people need to stop with like, that's woohoo, because it really does work. So I just had to plug that in there for you.
well, thank you.
Mhm.
But my aha moment was I had snuck out of sacrament meeting because my friend had slept in and didn't come to church that day. So I snuck out of sacrament. And as I was breaking into his house to wake him up, I went, yeah, maybe church really isn't for me. And
As you're breaking into it, they're
uh-huh,
watching you.
yep.
Just teasing.
And so that was kind of my sign that I wasn't really meant to be there. And from there, it just kind of took off to where I really started focusing more on my own magical practices, getting into hermetics and herbalism and things like that, and getting more
Wow.
in touch with just the universe and the way that it actually works. And
Wow.
but one of my big things is with the church, there's so much that really is valuable that isn't actually discussed in actual teachings because it
Such
has
as what?
become
Yeah, such as
such
what?
as gnosis, true knowledge and getting to know yourself. One of my favorite passages in the Doctrine and Covenants is every man, woman, and child is a star unto themselves. And people don't listen, they don't actually practice that part of it
Do you think
because
they
it is
kind of overlook a lot of that though and not?
because they want a bunch of little mindless worker bees
I
instead
agree.
of actually having individuals that are shining their own light.
I love how you put that because a lot of these interviews that I'm listening to because I'm just fascinated with everyone's great awakening stories, but there's something about people leaving the Mormon church because I was brought up Catholic. So this is all new to me. But when I moved out here, I had a big problem with people saying, oh, you can't wear that when, around and I'm thinking, who are these Mormons? They don't know me,
Mhm.
why can't I just be who I am? And don't get me going, I say this all the time, but we could buy our mummy juice at the grocery store back east. So when I came out here, I'm like, where's the wine?
Mhm.
It's so funny. Um, so that kind of intrigued me to want to learn more about it because honestly, as being an outsider hearing some of these stories, I'm just like, I'm very taken back.
Mhm.
Just people calling themselves prophets and yeah, black men can't be bishops. He's a man. Hello, I just all these things and just the painful, the pain that people have in the church teaching their own members to like alienate people, even if they're in your own family. And I just was like, oh my gosh, that is not a loving God in my book or what I feel.
Mhm.
Is, is that kind of along the lines of how you feel a little bit?
So, because it has become just so corporate, it's ripped the spirit out of so much of it. And that's a lot of my issue with the church. Because even when I was married years ago, my wife had converted. And so I started going back sort of half heartedly just to kind of appease her. But it
Mhm.
never really went anywhere just because then she started actually recognizing all of the stuff that I
I'd
left
already.
had already gotten around to realizing. And
Mhm.
so that just kind of petered out. But I'm still technically a member, though. I was able
Mhm.
to effectively get the missionaries off of my doorstep because when they came around and asked if I had ever heard about the church or anything, and I just looked at them and said, well, I'm probably the only woman you'll ever meet that still holds the Aaronic priesthood, so go ahead and wrap your head around that.
Yeah. Wow. Oh boy. How did they take your response?
They got wide-eyed, closed their books, and slowly backed away.
Smart. That's another thing I'm hearing is a lot of people, I'm still learning this process, with people dissolving their records or if I'm using the proper term, but a lot of them are saying they just didn't even do anything because it's more of a headache. And that's when the alienation begins, is when you do that. I mean,
Mhm.
I just can't wrap my head around that where there people in their own family, they just cut the cord. And I think that's just not loving
Mhm.
whatsoever. And,
Agreed.
and if the shoe was on the other foot and they felt that way and you and their family wasn't there, I mean, that is that's a big no-no.
Mhm.
And I
Agreed.
mean, I feel like it's just something that's going to come back and bite them in the ass.
Mhm.
But do you feel like that's part of a quote unquote programming, so to speak, that
Mhm.
they do?
Absolutely. I've been in relationships with people that were, you know, it, it, they were enrolled in like deprogramming camps essentially because they were queer.
What's Say that
Yes,
one more time?
yes, there are queer deprogramming programs for
People leaving the
within the
church?
for people within the church, so that people can like eh, try to get over their gayness or things like that and still maintain membership within the church.
Oh, gosh, why can't people be accepted the way that they are?
Hmm. Agreed.
I
Like,
mean, I
I
don't
mean,
I don't want everyone to look the same and act the same and be the same. That would be so stinking boring.
agreed.
Don't- Oh
Yeah,
my gosh, I'm
absolutely.
so sorry to hear that.
Now, fortunately, I was never part of that. I never,
Mhm.
because my parents are fairly open-minded. My dad owned an interior design firm, and so you get a lot of diversity within that particular field.
Okay. That's actually really beautiful to hear. So how did they react when you're like, nope, I'm not doing it anymore? They were just,
They wanted me to just find my own path and figure out what was right for me.
See,
I,
I love that answer. That's what a parent, in my opinion, is should be saying to their child.
Hmm.
no
No, and
matter
I
what.
have, yeah, I have relatives that have fallen away, and for a long time they were basically ostracized from their family because they were no longer totally within the church mentality. They've since come around, but it took a long time.
How many years did it take, do you think about?
Um, I don't have that great a relationship with my extended family, and
Yeah,
I'm the black sheep, and so I don't really hear a whole lot of the whys and wherefores. But
gotcha,
yeah,
gotcha. I hear you.
I
I
just
think a
know
lot of
basics.
people that are leaving are finding that they are the black sheeps, but what they are finding is that they went through such hardship. I mean, these
Mhm,
stories I'm hearing, such hardship. That is not a church. That is not a loving God. I mean,
mhm.
that's my own personal opinion.
It,
And
it, it, it's a cult. Just
I,
saying.
I mean, gosh, I don't want to, ruffle any feathers, but what I'm hearing, that's exactly what it sounds more or less like. And for
It's
them
just
to have
missing
all
the.
this, mhm.
It's only missing the Kool-Aid.
Sorry, guys, I gotta be me here. How do you feel about them with all this money?
It, I honestly think yeah, it's disgusting. Quite frankly, it is absolutely disgusting, and that's something that I really feel strongly about, which is kind of why I have in mind what I do, is because with tithing and throwing all of that money basically into a faceless void to build another temple and God knows where,
Hmm.
it's not actually benefiting anyone in the long run because it's going out to all of these other programs. I mean, yes, the Bishop Storehouse and Welfare Square and all of that stuff is a wonderful program. There's lots of other things that the church actually does to help others, but it's not getting back to the members that are actually
Needing it.
paying into it or those that are really truly
Oh,
needing it. But with what I'm wanting to put together is a community center that is built by the members for members. And it's essentially a co op where the more you spend at the community center co op, you actually get a yearly dividend back in based on uh, profit surplus. And
now when you
so,
say community, can you explain a little bit more about that? What you're talking
so
about?
So what I'm really wanting to do is actually having like not only a meeting and gathering place for ecstatic dance or yoga or anything, but also having like a retail space where the members of the community of the co-op can actually come and peruse any possible path that resonates with them instead of just going with what they were handed when they were born or when they
I like
converted or
that.
whatever that is.
I like
And so
that.
they can actually find themselves within that and have all of these different things available for purchase. And the more that you actually spend, the more you're actually getting back for your own personal growth. But have like classes and other things where
I love
people
that.
can learn herbalism, people can learn mycology, people can learn Reiki, people can come and
I
just
love that. That's
they
amazing.
can do.
It's so funny. I was thinking that in the last few years of just all of these, how can I put this? You know, the value of the dollar is just diminished where
Mhm,
inflation is off the charts and people just can't afford. I mean, it just makes me sad thinking that here we have all these elders that they can't even afford their meds, yet they're probably a generation that was the hardest working and our government can't even take care of them. I thought, why
mhm,
can't we have just some type of co-op where everyone pitches in and everyone is taken care of?
mhm.
Everyone pitches in for whatever industry that you're talking about. I mean, to me, that makes a lot of sense. Take out all the pork and fat out of using monies for marketing for these big fancy commercials and so forth, and put it towards the people.
Mhm.
It's simple. It's so
Absolutely.
simple.
Mhm.
I love it. I have a funny feeling that's going to end up happening someday.
Well, and that's part of my reasoning for wanting to start this in the Salt Lake Valley is because of people leaving the church, because there are so many that are losing that sense of community once they walk
Yeah,
away. And so having a place where you can actually make those friends, you can make those connections and like
I
help each
love
other
it.
out and do those
Yes,
sorts of things.
so you're gonna have to totally stand by because I would love for you to be a part of our community that we're also, I mean, this is, I think everyone should join them all, you know what I
Hmm.
mean? Because, and the other thing that I genuinely stress to people is with the type of environment that you're speaking of, you know, with Reiki yoga and so forth and all that, I want to encourage people to cut the cord on that propaganda brainwashing that we've been taught that it doesn't work. It's because honestly, every person that I have talked to, it works beyond
Hmm.
better than what is pushed on us in other avenues, if that makes sense. Does that make
Hmm.
sense to you?
Oh yeah.
Because you know, I've been learning over the years that honestly, when people really, really dig deep, oh shoot, I don't know why that went off. When people really, really dig deep, that we've all been brainwashed
Hmm.
since we've been children and our parents and so forth, encouraging panic and just, fear and labels. I mean, I'm just disgusted in all the labels that are out there, and but we fell
Hmm.
for it,
Oh yeah. Well,
we fell
it's
for
all
it.
cultural indoctrination because it's
Yeah.
just having people believe they're as small as they making people believe that they are small when in fact they are universally powerful and great.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I love how you said that because honestly, that's what Jesus was trying to tell everyone. You're going to do
Hmm.
bigger and better things that I have. And I don't think a lot of people even can wrap their head around that or really understand the meaning of it because
Hmm.
they're not being taught it. Does that make
Yeah.
sense to you?
Oh yeah. Well, and to me, the whole notion of the second coming of Christ, there is no single person that is going to just magically appear to bring love and light to everything. Christ consciousness exists within each and every one of us. And
I love what you just said. It's so
it's
true. We have to save ourselves. That
we
was
have to
what it
save
was all
ourselves.
about.
Yeah, and it's all about us stepping into our own divinity and actually raising that vibration and that consciousness so that it does become a reality across the globe and throughout the universe.
I love it. And you know what? I love how you just put that because I feel like in a church, so to speak, whatever religion, they don't talk about that. They
Hmm.
don't talk about it at all. The more that I hear about it, it makes me furious that
Yeah.
why would you leave the most important stuff out and make people think that they're inferior to everything and anything out there?
Hmm.
I mean, again,
No.
hence the
Why?
labels.
Why rely on an external force when truly all knowledge comes from within?
Yeah, and that's in every religion out there. They talk of this.
Hmm.
But they're
Yeah.
just
Don't.
not practicing it.
Yeah. It's don't. I. I don't like to rely on somebody else's experience. I would rather experience it for myself. That's why I started getting into the things that I did, and that's why I pardon me for saying so, but one of my favorite mantras, and forgive me if this is uh,
Say it. This
not
is
good, fuck around and find out. Because, you know, if you don't play with it and you don't experience it for yourself, you don't know whether or not it works for you.
Yep, yep. I agree. Good for you. You can drop some words. It doesn't matter. I want people to be
Okay.
raw, real, and authentic. I'm tired of this cookie cutter. You have to act like this. You have to
Mm-hmm.
look like that. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
don't do. I mean, come on. As long as you're kind, you show a little class and a little bit of, respect for another, whether you agree or not.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's another thing. Can I ask you, do you feel that how can I put this? That the church has actually more or less, I'm gonna say it or ask it, should I say, groomed everyone to exactly
Hmm.
the way that they want them and not for the individual.
Absolutely.
Could you expound
Yeah.
on that, how you feel about that? Because the more interviews that I'm hearing, that is just a common denominator.
Yeah.
Do.
Everybody needs to be waking up at 6 a.m. and reading their scriptures and saying prayers with their families. And when I was a kid, you'd have little Sally, oh, well, I was up and praying with my family at 6 a.m. And then they get around to me, what were you doing? I was sitting in my underwear and watching Blazing Saddles.
I love you're so adorable. I love it. Yeah.
And so it's everybody else has this predetermined notion of what it is to be a good person, when in fact being a good person is all internal. It's just
It
how
is.
you are able to perceive and interact with the world. And
Yeah.
if you can't live from a place of compassion, gratitude, and kindness and love,
And
namely love,
gratefulness and being
that
grateful for
and
what you
being
have. And
and that's really what makes a good person. It isn't
yeah.
going on the mission and making sure that you don't swear or don't do this and don't do that.
Oh, they would
Do
not
it
like
all.
me because I have a potty mouth every once in a while. I try to
uh,
keep it PG-13, a lot of times, but apparently my favorite word is shit. So
mm-hmm.
I
I,
just it's better than what I could say about certain things out there. So
I had the heart of a saint and a mouth like a sailor, and so that's just kind of the way of it.
I love it. Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. So can that topic that we were just talking about, can I ask you, how do you feel about the church talking to children in their pubescent stage? I've heard mixed reviews that they're really not doing it as much, or they are about asking them about their sexuality and all of that.
I,
Have you heard anything about that?
I've heard plenty, and I totally disagree with it. It's something that if it's really going to be that big a thing, the parents should have an open enough conversation and dialogue with their children that
That's a very good
should
point. It
it
shouldn't be a
shouldn't be
church.
it shouldn't be the church talking to them. It should be the family members if there is a concern. But
That's a
then again,
valid point.
it's not even really necessarily a concern, because it should just be an open part of life, and
I
not,
agree.
especially if somebody's having those feelings that a boy can love a boy, and
Yep.
they should be able to say, so have you met a nice boy recently? Are you going to bring them over for dinner? It shouldn't be, no, you can't do that, we're
Yeah.
going to cart you off to get those feelings pushed out of you. That's not right.
I totally agree with you. Can you explain what, in your opinion, what you have heard about these type of camps to, I mean, that's just, I mean, someone knows what they know inside, you
Hmm.
know? They just
And
know. And
uh, I don't know much about them. I've just heard stories about them from friends and other people, and they don't like talking about it because of
oh,
how awful they were. And so,
oh, that
by
just
them being
breaks my
tight-lipped.
heart. That's actually being a bully.
Hmm.
I mean, more than a bully. I mean,
Hmm.
do you feel like that's happening everywhere in this world, that everyone feels like they're just acting like bullies to one another
Hmm.
if they don't agree or disagree,
Hmm. Well, we're all, through the cultural indoctrination, we're all
participating?
programmed.
If
Well, if we haven't woken up and actually started perceiving what is really going on, we're
mhm,
all stuck in this state of fear and division and us versus them.
correct.
And
I
it's
completely agree with you. And no one
and
is above or below. We're all
no,
equal. Just
we're
like
all stuck.
they always say, but
Uh-huh.
they never do, because they
Yeah.
continue to keep the labels. And it's
Uh-huh.
what I have found is it's a psychological mental warfare game,
Oh, it
where
is.
that as long as you keep stirring the pot, it's never going to get solved when you throw labels everywhere on everyone and you're not good
Mhm.
enough and you should be like that. I mean, there's one story, one interview um I had with Stephanie Davis, and she was talking about how she was just getting so confused because she just felt on the inside that she just didn't believe all these strict rules and trying to push so much of their quote unquote agenda on her. She just felt it. And so, like a lot of kids, you're a teenager and you're going through these awkward phases and so forth. And she was telling me about one of those camps. Her parents sent her away to one of them. And just some of the things she was saying, I'm like, how could anyone think that that is going to benefit someone unless you want to beat something into their head to just comply and accept it instead of, does that make sense?
Mhm.
I mean, I was heartbroken when I heard that.
Yeah,
And
and everybody's going to be who they are, no matter what,
yeah,
and we're all just individuated versions of consciousness here to learn our own lessons for everyone else. Because
yeah.
that's just what the universe does. And
I
so
love that.
trying to have that division, and that's one of the worst things about religion, is because it's easy to program the us versus them mentality when
I
we're all stuck
so
on
agree.
we're all stuck on this blue marble hurtling through infinite space together. We might as well play nice. Let's
I
just
agree. You just had a really valid point that I love how you put it, that just literally, stop, stop, stop. I mean, I think we've all heard this, so I can say it, Jews will say, oh, ours is our religion, and the Catholics, and then the Christians, and it's like, it's all the same.
it's
Why
all the same.
why are you trying to pawn that what I am finding in a lot of these interviews is that that is the hub of one of the big problems, is
Hmm.
using those labels once again. I'm better than you. It
Hmm.
doesn't resonate for a
It,
lot of people anymore. It makes
no,
no
and
sense.
that's a lot of why I'm an omnist. I mean, I'm a Unitarian minister, and what I see is there is truth in all of it, but
Yeah,
it's all the same anyway. It
yeah.
just depends on who wrote it and whose experience you're actually attaching meaning to. And
Mhm.
if you take in that information and then read between the lines and actually find what resonates with you, that's where you will find truth.
I so agree. That just resonates big time with me, because I feel like so many people, even outside of leaving the Mormon church, people are really starting to find within them, like, I think a lot of people always, when they had the real shitty, shitty stuff that happened to them, and they're just like, since a child and up, or whatever it is, it's just like, why? And they just beat themselves up. And we've all done it. We all do it. But I feel like when people can look back as they mature and kind of get to know themselves better on their interests, their passions, and so forth, it's almost like people are rising up now, like, oh my gosh, I am so badass that I went through all of that. And it was
Mm-hmm.
hard. But I mean, I'm finding a lot of these people, they're breaking free. They're
Mm-hmm.
literally, they've got this feeling that others watch and they think that it's just pure craziness, that them being so lighthearted and kind and happy, they think it's just a show. But what I'm finding is a lot of the people that are laughing at these people are the ones that need the most love and the most help, but they don't
Mm-hmm.
know how to help it because I feel like they're stuck in that.
They're stuck in that loop instead of realizing the spiral.
Yes, I love it. I love it. Can I ask you, in your own opinion, where do you see, how should I ask this? In your own opinion, how do you, because let's be honest, all of us know it's been in every, esoteric religion of what we always talk about the word the universe and universal energy and the love and all that, but I don't hear any of that in any church.
Mhm.
So could I have you explain in your own words how you feel about that and how that it has not been taught in the church per se? Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
I think so. So correct me if I'm wrong,
Okay.
but I don't think I am. So the way I view it is you can call it whatever you want, God, Allah, anything, but
Gee, the force,
really,
like
it,
Star
but
Wars.
but it is just source. It is source energy that is a universal consciousness that we are all individuated avatars of, so that we can experience the magic of itself because it doesn't have the capacity to do it for itself. That's why we're here.
That was beautiful and so simple. But so thank you for saying that. But my I think that also what I'm leading into is how come the church doesn't really talk about any of this? However, it's in our face everywhere we are, it's in your songs, it's in your music, it's in your entertainment, it's in your motivational speakers and all that, and it's in your books, but it seems like no church is actually explaining that. Do you
Because
have
it, it
your point of view on that?
it's all about control. It's all about maintaining the masses so that they can keep that stream of money coming in and keep people vibrationally low. That's why they,
Yeah,
like, for example, the Catholic Church, they rely on fear. And instead of fearing anything on this particular plane of existence, they have the afterlife and whether or not you're going to go to heaven or hell. In my opinion, heaven or hell is what you experience here
I
and
agree.
has nothing to do with the afterlife. It's where you are vibrationally and where you are just as a person. You either create your own heaven or hell before you actually pass on to the next iteration that you're meant to experience through your
I
soul's
love how you
progression.
said that. So here's a question for you. How come they don't talk about this ascension and this process within the church? Because when I was in Catholic Church, I was a radical. I mean, I've had a few interviews, I've talked about this, but for myself and my own personal experience was I remember sitting in Catholic Church, maybe fifth, sixth grade, and I identified at an early age exactly kind of what you said about the fear. Like I'm looking around, I'm like, everyone's a sinner. Uh-oh, we're all going to hell. Uh-oh, that doesn't sound fun. So what is there to life if we're all going to hell? Why would anyone want to keep practicing on being better? And I don't know, I feel like a lot of people are kind of getting to that place that why is everything so overcomplicated in religion when it should just be kind, loving, supportive. We may not agree. That's okay. But that's how we come up with these great ideas and sharing. Because when I think about it, if we all thought exactly the same, it's easier to comply and control. But also at the same time, the creativity and everyone is gone.
Mm-hmm.
The magic is gone. Does that make
Mm-hmm.
sense?
Yeah. No, with the experience we are meant to have here on this particular plane, it is magic. I mean, just looking out
Yeah.
your window, looking at a head of Romanesco, like looking at the overall just glorious design of everything. We're all stuck
Yeah.
in this eat, sleep, work, entertain me cycle that has been just thrust upon us so that we can be
Yeah.
part of society. When
Yeah.
society really, why am I paying taxes when everything in nature is free? Like,
I love that. Do you get really now that, I mean, I can completely tell you are completely awakened, but does it drive you crazy that we've allowed our environment to get so toxic? Not just in emotions and so forth, but I mean like Mother Earth. I mean, we're the ones that are responsible for polluting her. I mean, because
mhm,
we're being taught it on all of our shows and it's just I don't think people really grasp that until they sit and watch a TV show and really pay attention, because there's actually always a message within it. And this is one thing that I always talk about. I've learned about numerology and gematria, and it's very real. You can ask any high-ranking military officer. It's a way to communicate without people, the masses, understanding what's happening. I mean, it's so cool that people literally receive their own messages and they will pee their pants and be like, oh my gosh, how did the big guy upstairs know about this about me? It's so cool. But my point is if people just really sit and listen, what I have found is over the years is all these commercials and stuff, they're literally making fun of us and they don't even pick up on it because they're
Mm-hmm.
normalizing it where, the kids are talking fresh to their parents. So what do the kids do? Now they're talking fresh to their parents. Now, what I'm finding is that the parents are so overworked and stressed out and they've got so much going on up here, they allow it. So it's like all this, you're ugly, you need to do this, you're in debt, oh no, you got to get you. I mean, what makes me really upset is these ads where you get paid 2 days before your paycheck. If that does not awaken people to be like, then where's all my money going that we're paying on taxes, and why are they not helping and solving all these problems?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, I get a little fired up.
You're fine. I totally understand.
But do you get what I'm trying to say? It's hard
Mm-hmm.
where people do not see that. They don't,
No, they
or
don't.
they don't want to see it and they want to think that they're smarter. And what I'm finding is a lot of these people are so, I hate to use the word brainwashed, but we've all been there,
Mm-hmm.
and it breaks my heart for them because there's no creativity in the mind anymore for them to
Mm-hmm.
actually recognize any of these signs. Does that
Oh,
make sense?
oh yeah. Well, so many people are caught up in consume. They are they're keeping up with the Joneses. They're like pouring all of their effort into appearances and everything else and externalizing everything instead of
Yeah.
actually bringing in their own peace, their own happiness, because it is
Yeah.
present within each and every one of us. But until you become present in this moment right here and now, just for today, you will always be seeking, you will always be searching for that next big thing, that next fix. And that's part of why
Yeah.
addiction is a problem, is because so many are externalizing things and trying to find an outside source to satisfy that internal need. When really, if you just go
Yes.
within, you can actually find and examine yourself and become self aware.
I
And
love that
naturally
word
do
you
that.
just said, examine, like examine yourself, look at yourself in the mirror, where
Mm-hmm.
you hear that saying all the time, but I don't think people really truly understand how deep that goes instead of looking at like the outside.
Mm-hmm.
I
Oh,
love, so
and
when you say going within, could you, I mean, for myself, I understand what you're saying, but could you go a little deeper on that? I understand, looking in the mirror and so forth. How can you further expound on that for people that are listening?
so,
Because a lot of people laugh and they think they're like, go within. Well, I do go within and I'm not hearing anything. Or does that make sense?
mhm. Well, just to start, the Reiki principles are just for today. I will release anger. I will release worry. I will be filled with gratitude. I will be kind to all life. I will do my work honestly, and I will love unconditionally just for today. Now,
Yeah.
with those, it kind of gives you a template of something that you can,
Work with.
say you can work with, and you can say it to your own subconscious mind so that it just kind of becomes a part of you as you
Mhm.
recite them. But at the end of the day, you can actually go through your day and be like, okay, were there times when I was angry? Were there times when I was worried about
What
something?
triggered
How,
it?
what triggered it? How did I respond or react to it? Was I reacting versus responding to it? Was
Mhm.
I actually kind to that person on the corner? Was I actually doing my own work
Yeah.
to the best of my ability. And in all of those things, was I better than I was the day before?
Yeah.
Yes or no? Was I? Okay, I was, but can I do better tomorrow?
I love that because it is really baby steps. I feel like a lot of people have been, I hate to say it again, but brainwashed by propaganda
Hmm.
that they everything is a quick fix.
Hmm.
So if they keep thinking everything is a quick fix instead of doing and practicing like you said, like, okay, today was a better day, just baby steps. And I
Hmm.
feel like most people that have done that and who have dug deep really, really start getting to know themselves and examine themselves and their feelings. And, I say it time and time again in these interviews, but it's just like entertainment.
Hmm.
They show people being, questioned by a counselor. And I really do feel like, the more serious stuff, I understand. But, the like human trafficking and pedophilia and like horrific things, I understand that needs someone. But for the most part, they're already showing you in your shows. It's another propaganda tool where I find is when did you start feeling this way? How did
Hmm.
that make you feel? What happened? Did someone say or do something to you? And you know what I mean? It's just that simple where you always hear that saying, just peel back the layers, go deeper, go deeper. And I mean, honestly, that is finding yourself.
Well, that is the translation of esoteric. It is looking within.
Now, how do you feel that? How did this all get excluded from religion and what we're talking about?
Mhm.
How,
One more
how
time.
how do you feel that what we're talking about right now was excluded from religion? Because I feel like it's way more important. It's great to know some history and scripture and so forth, but I mean, from if people do their research and they go on YouTube and so forth, they're going to find a lot of the top biblical scholars in every religion will tell you scripture has been adjusted, you
Mhm.
know?
Uh, as with
How did it
any book,
happen?
that it, I wish I knew, honestly, but it was most likely sometime in Middle Ages, early Renaissance, when you're dealing with lots of horrors, lots of terrible things that we as a modern society couldn't possibly fathom. The plague, no thanks.
I
Like,
agree with you. I mean, people have it made when they look at their lives. So many people are brats out there where they're like,
mhm.
oh, my life is so awful. And they have all these things and they don't understand other
but
people's.
e-
Mhm.
but even during that time period, like just as one quick example, um, for brewers, for people that were actually brewing beer, they used what was called Groot as the main ingredient, as sort of an
Groot, like
antiseptic agent.
in Guardian of the Galaxy. Groot.
No, Grut, Groot.
Okay. You almost got me excited. I was going to think that was a good decode.
And so, but Groot is actually a combination of different herbs that are very uplifting. They're actually very like vibe ascending. Whereas sometime in I believe, 1300s, the Norwegians actually introduced hops. Well, hops as an herb is very naturally depressing. It has the same sort of antiseptic characteristics to it, but it's very vibe depressing. And so there was a
Ah.
300-year debate within the Catholic Church as to whether Groot or hops was going to be the main ingredient in brewing. Hops won out eventually because of its depressive
Wow.
capacities. And so
That is so interesting. I did
yeah,
that explains a lot.
and why alcohol is one of the main, why everything else is illegal, but alcohol is just fine because it keeps everybody depressed in
And
their
numb
energy.
down. Yeah. Yeah. I've been noticing that a lot as well in quote unquote, and I know some people might hate this word, but I'm really finding it is a word and it's the only one I can explain. But I feel like our entertainment has done a very good job at showing people their behaviors. People that get depressed, let's drink, I'll have a cocktail or two. I don't go crazy or anything, you know what I mean? But
Hmm.
honestly, I mean, they're showing you all these different ways of releasing your insecurities, your pain and suffering within that no one can see, with all these other things like smoking cigarettes and drinking alcohol, instead of showing people the other way of going within and not needing
Self
that.
self reflection and actually like having gratitude for that which you have and not what you
Yeah.
desire.
Yes. And just I find that when more and more people go within, it's like, the tiny home movement and all that kind of stuff, where people are really waking up going, I don't want to have to work anymore to pay for this big, huge house. I'd rather be out in nature and enjoying myself and picking blueberries and making my own blueberry pies. And do you know what I mean? And and
Hmm.
and a lot of this programmed I'm better than you type attitude look down on people like that for wanting to break free from this whole bullshit that we've been fed into. I mean,
Hmm.
it almost makes me sad for these people that it reminds me of how Mormons treat other people within the church when they're ready to leave. Does that make
Hmm.
sense? Like, I'm just trying to compare.
Yeah, because it's not it's not part of the natural order of things. It's what has worked for somebody for the last 60 plus years within the church. Suddenly there's this young little upstart that comes in and wants to do things differently. Well, that's just not how things are done. And
Yeah,
how could I possibly agree with that? But that's just you can't teach an old dog new tricks, but you really
mhm.
can. It's
I agree
just
if they want
it's
to.
just if they want to, you just have to rattle the cage in the right way to get them to actually view it from the right perspective. Because you can't actually teach something to somebody if they're not
Enforce
willing to.
it.
They're not willing to experience it from their own
Yeah.
level of perception.
That's beautiful. And I'd love to add to that. I mean, one thing that I'm finding meeting a lot of people doing these interviews is that what's the point of living? Seriously, like think about this. This is like, what's the point of living if you're feeling subservient to your own self and you can't express how you really want to be? I find that being kind of like depressing and gloomy, like this is it.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. So in a way, I feel like a lot of people feel that way. Like, why even bother trying if I already feel this way? Does that make sense? What I'm trying
Be,
to say?
because the best way to really truly find what makes you happy is to go back to what made you happy as a kid, to find your bliss, to
Yes, to
get
be
that to,
childlike.
to be childlike, to get back into that space to where you actually see everything from a place of wonderment because it's all brand
Um,
new. You haven't
yes,
had
you
truly
stop and you smell the
transition.
flowers
You
more and
stop
you
and you
look
smell
at
the
the birds and like just watching them be
you,
so cute with each other. And
you chase the butterflies just because they're
yeah,
free and happy and you want to be like them. It's just finding your bliss, finding what
yeah,
you choose to be happy with instead of
yeah.
trying to accumulate more that you're just growing deeper and deeper in debt for, and
I
it
love it. I was
ultimately
just thinking
is
that, and I don't think
just
people realize it.
no, it's just more crap that you don't need because it isn't actually bringing you any joy. It's just
Oh my
and some
gosh,
it's just something that you have to continue with the daily grind in order to maintain.
I
But I mean,
agree.
I drive an old beater. I don't even have internet at home. I have an entire DVD collection because I don't have any streaming services. The only one that I maintain is my Spotify premium because if I went without music, I would die. But
Me
other than that,
too.
but other than that, I have, cartoons and old movies that I grew up with that if I
I
actually
love it.
feel driven to do that because I'm usually reading or writing coursework or, self-help or spirituality just to expand my own experience.
I
But
love that.
it's just finding those little things like Rocky and
To cut
Bullwinkle.
back.
I can quote it verbatim. Like it's just all of those little things that brought
You
me
can
joy when
quote from
I was
what?
younger.
What was that? You can quote from
Rocky and Bullwinkle, because
Oh, that show. Hey,
all
Rocky
of those little things that I grew up with that just, put me back into that space and they're comfortable. And
I
I never
love
get sick of
that.
that stuff.
I love that you said that because I feel like it's just so overwhelming with these streaming services. I mean, I know from experience and hearing from others that just all these people lose track, and it's just like your clothes. I mean, I myself, because I got into this mode, I had a shitload of clothes and I have a thing for shoes. I got rid of a lot of nice shoes, but I don't, but it made me think, I'm like, I end up wearing the same stuff all the time. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? It's like I like to
Oh yeah.
wear what's cozy and and then I think about, gosh, do people, if they actually sit and digest some of this, like how much money they really could save instead of
Mm-hmm.
feeling like, oh, like I feel I know is, trends. It's no different than a label. Here's another way to be like everyone else when what you're wearing, if you already like it, why do you need to keep going with
Mm-hmm.
what's pushed on you?
Yeah, I mean, I designed a pair of pants that I have in multiple colors. They're made out of French terry and they're just wonderfully comfortable. I've sworn off jeans just because I can. They're fashion joggers, but they're my own style.
I love it. I think what's happening is people are starting to go back to doing those creative things. Like I have so many friends that knit and do a lot of crafty things and they're doing it from what I understand is because they're just looking for something instead of just dumbing down themselves in front of the boob tube with all the commercials going, and
Hmm.
they're just releasing and it makes them happy. And like one of my friends that I met out here, I thought it was one of the most thoughtful gifts, but yet so simple and unique. She hand knitted a little, because she knows I'm really big into rescue dogs, and one of my rescue dogs, Lulu, she's just adorable. And but for Christmas, she made me this cute look-alike. I'm like, wow, that's just the neatest gift ever. And she made this really nice pendant for me. And I thought, wouldn't that be nice if people go back to that instead of going to, your Walmart? I mean, I used to sell products to Walmart of my own and Home Depot and all that. And what I found is they call them planograms. And when you look at the floor space, I mean, they put so much shit in your face that you think you freaking need that you're only going to use once. I mean, this is definitely a well thought out business plan on their part. But I really got thinking about it, going, oh my gosh, now multiply that by like what, a gazillion extra feet. All you need are the basics. But yet
Hmm.
we've all been taught through our propaganda and our TV ads that we need more of this. But I just feel like people are recognizing that now. Do you find
Hmm.
it the same thing? Like
Oh
people
yeah,
are kind of scaling
yeah.
back for a lot of reasons, but
Oh yeah. I mean, that's the whole tiny home van life movement that is really kind of taking hold. The only thing is, a lot of people don't actually consider the ramifications of it when they have been indoctrinated into that more is better mentality.
yeah,
Because
yeah.
now suddenly you don't have everything that you had at your immediate disposal, but they're not taking into account that they do have their own creativity to figure out new ways of doing things.
Mm. I'm listening. I'm listening between the lines.
Hmm.
I like
Because
that.
I mean, I believe in quality over quantity. I would rather buy something once and never have to think about it again.
I
But if
agree.
if said thing breaks, I have to be able to figure out how to actually do what I'm intending. If my can opener breaks, I have to be able to figure out a way to open a can.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So good. I love it. I mean, and now think about all the stuff when people look around their home now. I think they're just going to start looking around going, do I really use this? You know, when your parents used to be like, okay, it's time to clean spring cleaning. If you don't use it or haven't used it for a while, then you don't need it, you know?
Mhm,
And I mean, I feel like everyone can look in their home and just look everywhere and be like, oh, I haven't used that forever. Like, don't get me wrong, my like family heirloom jewelry and things like that. I think those are just the most, you know, important, meaningful things. But it's just all the shoes. Like, I get rid of
mhm,
so many nice sandal shoes and the
mhm.
nice.
A-
But here
And,
I'm saying they were the nice, expensive ones because I fell for propaganda because it's a
mhm.
label. Do you see what I'm
Well,
saying?
just because you're saving 20%, you're still spending that additional money for something that you may not need. It's
Hmm.
better to not spend if you don't
Don't
really
need.
truly need it. I mean, when people wonder where all of their money goes, if you think about it, you spend an additional $27 and I think it's 63 cents every day. That's $10,000 a year.
It adds up
27
quick. And think of
$27
all
and
of those
63
things that
cents.
they're renting.
Mm-hmm,
Wow. Isn't that crazy though, when you think about the big picture? And I'm just so excited though. People are really, really honing it in. And I also feel that people that are awakening in this great awakening is that they really do want to spend more time with their family and they kind of want to get to know their family again because many are realizing that the time was taken away from them because their minds were occupied on things that, you know, I feel like it is part of the programming when you really evaluate it from a
mm-hmm,
logical standpoint and not an overthinking standpoint. Does that make
mm-hmm,
sense?
mm-hmm.
Like, wouldn't that be
It's
nice where people spend more time with each other and they're more giving and they do more in person instead of, I mean, I'm grateful we can do this Zoom, you know, but more in person.
mm-hmm,
People need that. It's like Rudolph. He didn't want to
mm-hmm,
be left out of all the reindeer games. They want to be included, right?
mm-hmm. Yeah, and everybody wants to be a part of something, and
Yeah.
that's everybody. And we're no longer a nomadic tribal
Inclusive. Yeah, it's not
species.
inclusive.
Because if we don't have one another, we can't really thrive or survive. Because we
That is a
are,
very valid point.
I mean, we are very emotionally connected beings, and I mean, that's where language comes from. That's where art comes from. That it's because we have all of our own human ties. I mean, that's one of
Yeah.
my favorite things I learned in humanities. Is if you drop the I, you have human ties, and that's what humanity is all about. Is our interactions
Coming
with one
together.
another. It's
That
our coming
is,
together, our interpersonal relationships,
I
and that's
love it.
how we find our own sense of individuality within the whole, because every person is their own spark. They are their own
Truly.
unique version, that there is not another one just like you.
Yeah. Or you.
Mm-hmm,
I love that. And you know, that's a very valid point as well, because if people continue to be so boom, 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 and bad, you know, my religion's better or my, you know, whatever it is, and they're just constantly like this, God forbid if something bad happened in this world, right?
mm-hmm,
And let's say like the EBS goes off or you know you don't have power for a long time just like in all your movies and stuff, if you don't have the skills to try to communicate your, how are you going to survive if
mm-hmm,
you always need to be right?
mm-hmm. If you can't find your own humility, if you can't find like common ground with another, you're going to die.
Yeah, you need each other. That's a really good way. I mean, I laugh, but that's the uncomfortable laugh that we've all
Mm-hmm,
been taught when you recognize something through our entertainment. But that's a good point.
mm-hmm.
Bye,
Like
humanity.
I can garden, but what if my neighbor can't? And they can't provide their own food, but they have other unique skills that they can provide, so that we can actually have a symbiotic camaraderie.
Yes. And like moms going back to babysitting each other's kids and helping each other out, which I know that still exists, but it just doesn't seem like it's as popular as it was. Because
Mhm.
I remember that growing up with my mom, she was a nurse working and juggling 3 kids and running the house and all that. And, you know, us women and parents, we appreciate that when we can rely and trust someone to help you out because you know that your time to return the favor is going to come out in some different way,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
On based on I love this. Oh my gosh, we need to stay in touch. And that actually brings me to the whole, the spiritual thinking tank. We're creating a community. I'm going to have more details on that soon, but this is the kind of stuff that I love. And I feel like a lot of people leaving the church and people having their awakenings, they love this kind of stuff. Like, screw government. They're not doing shit for me. Like, if we're going to have to figure this out, let's come together and come up with ideas. And what are your skill sets? And he's the plow guy and he makes, candles. And you know what I mean? That's how we end up coming back together instead of what you were saying, how if you can't help each other and you're like this, it's just never going to work. So that was
Mhm.
just beautifully said. So can I ask you, Quorra, wrapping up the interview, do you have any words of encouragement for people leaving the Mormon Church or any religion for that matter?
Stay strong. Stay true to yourself. Don't listen to the naysayers. Don't take those things to heart because only you can know yourself.
So beautiful and so simple. I love it. I find that to be really true. I mean, I think a lot of people on this journey are finding that it's just so simple, it's genius. Yeah,
It, life really is simple. It's ourselves overcomplicating things.
yeah, I agree. And listening, allowing that noise to always go through these 2 ears and through here to not think for yourself and just listen. I
Mhm.
love it. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate this. Are you open to sharing your information or anything if your story resonates with someone? And I'm feeling like you would be open to giving them some
Absolutely.
guidance or answering questions.
Yeah, I do have a Facebook page, Quantum Living Ministry.
Mhm,
You can locate me there. I also have my email address, quantumlivingministry at gmail.com.
mhm.
And I'm willing to I teach Reiki, I teach sound healing. I have a lot of different practices. I even have clientele and
I love
patients.
it. You've learned
Like
so much. That says a
I,
lot about a person instead of just being, you know what I mean? It's very
mhm.
eclectic and it's so cool. I love that.
Yeah, and I want people to find what resonates with them. And honestly, my rates are very reasonable, especially if you want to receive a Reiki attunement, and you can learn everything that you need to
Very
do,
real.
and
Very.
truly begin your journey into self reflection and finding yourself,
I love
your
it.
true self.
Thank you for that. And I just love that I'm finding so many people that are leaving the church. They know the pain and
Hmm.
they really, I mean, here's the thing that I love is they are awakening and realizing that they are a warrior and they're badass, but
Hmm.
they don't want people to feel the way they did. So they're there to support. They're not asking you to buy and do anything. They're there to support people and to help
Hmm.
them and to share the tools that and the things that kind of open their mind and little things that they did, stuff like that.
Hmm.
That's it. No one's
Well,
pushing anything, it's
no,
just
my
if it
whole
jives,
thing is
yeah.
My whole thing is realize yourself, your capital self, and others will notice.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Well, listen, guys, we hope you enjoyed our interview tonight. If you know anyone that is going through this great awakening and they want to share their story, please reach out. This is something that, a lot of people have hobbies and knitting and so forth. I'm fascinated about learning about people and how they work and so forth. Please be sure to like and subscribe because we're going to have a lot of stories coming, a lot of interviews, and I can guarantee at some point you're going to recognize people. And then that's going to be the aha moment, Quorra, where people are like, I never knew they were going
Hmm.
through all this. And then it's going to start the domino effect like, oh my gosh, I feel the same way. Like, they're coming out of the closet of whatever it is on spirituality and leaving the religion. And it's going to make people start thinking for themselves and get that going as well. So I get excited about it because I want everyone to win. So
Me too.
I love it. Well, thank you for your time. I
Well, thank you
really
for having
appreciate it.
me.
Absolutely. And we're staying in touch.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, everyone, you have a good day, and we hope that some of this information it resonates with you. All right. Have a good day. Have a good one. Bye,
You too.
Cora. Thank you. Bye-bye.